Good morning, everybody. It's actually good to see so many people on a Saturday morning, that too in Washington, D.C., fighting the traffic on 66, right? Even on Saturday, we have a wonderful traffic jam. Um, so it's good to see that entrepreneurship is getting a lot of interest in the DC area. I do spend my time in multiple places and look at the entrepreneurship energy in Silicon Valley. Compared to that, a few years back, DC has almost nothing, but it's good to see some growing interest in entrepreneurship here. And of course, there are some key people in the DC area who don't really speak too much, but I think it's a good time that American Bazaar has decided to host this event. I think we should give credit to American Bazaar and the organizations like that who are trying to bring entrepreneurs in the forefront of the community. Right, so with that, what I'm going to do is ask few questions to the panelists. The first question for both of them is, why did they decide to choose and become an entrepreneur?
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm glad to be here. And I wanted to thank you, Asif, first putting this gathering together. And I do see some of the familiar faces here too, from the business, my line of business and some other businesses. Well, my inspiration is from my husband. Yeah, my name is Nadia Ayoubi Aluwalia, and I have an IT company, Hummingbirds Consulting. I've been into multiple businesses, and I've been into a mortgage business. I have successfully with 180 employees, and I've been into a retail business, and now I have an IT company. So I do have a good grasp of a small business operation. As far as how I got introduced to entrepreneurship, it was inspiration came from my husband, Mr. Punita Aluwalia. So that's how I got involved in the business.
Hi, you can hear me. So, hi everybody. I'm Smita Siddhanti, and my firm is called EnDyna. I had started this in 2001, and I've been in consulting business forever. So it's a government consulting business. We primarily do environmental consulting to the government agencies, environmental health and safety, and also do a lot of management consulting work. So I have been thinking about doing this business. So the question was, how did you get into entrepreneurship, right? So I was a principal at Booz Allen and Hamilton, which is a large consulting firm right after my graduate school. I was working in consulting and made my way up, and then realized that if I was working that hard for a large firm, I was going to try to do this on my own. That was one angle, I always thought, and the other angle was my kids were little, and I wanted to balance that, and said, if I was working this hard, I will do it from home. And it didn't last too long. I stayed home for about 6 months, and the business grew, and I had to get out and build a business again. So in that sense, the incentive were two. That one was a balance of controlling my own schedule and family life. And the second was, obviously, I really thought if I had been in consulting long enough, that time to go and try my own thing. So if the idea of this session is to just not talk about us, but kind of takeaways for those interested in starting this, and I think the idea was women entrepreneurs. I don't see a whole lot of women here in terms of entrepreneurship, but I think it applies to men and women, the whole lessons learned here, and that's what Satyam and I were talking. I'm also on the board of the TIE, which Satyam is the would-be president of, which is the Indus Entrepreneurs, and so we're both into encouraging entrepreneurship, and I think we've done that for the last 15 years. I've been very active at TIE, and very happy to see this organization coming up and a lot more interest in entrepreneurship.
So before the question for both of you, before starting entrepreneurship, what kind of training did you have about entrepreneurship?
Well, I have to say I had a very strict training because I was working under in my husband's organization and managing 180 employees. So we're talking about not only from a business perspective, it's from, the work was at the office and home too. So, and obviously when you're working with your husband, it's a completely different kind of training we're talking about here. So that's the idea behind it, and I learned a lot from that business with him.
So in my case, I think it's a very different story because I don't even come from a business family, and I'd never been exposed to business in reality. I'm very academic orientation. My dad was a vice chancellor of a university. I'm myself a PhD, and I was completely in a different academic mode, and consulting came closer to that academia mode. So yes, no, business was never, ever anything that I thought I was going to do. But given that I was in the game, as they say, I had learned about federal business by being with a very large firm, and Booz Allen Hamilton is a very large consulting firm which does government contracting. So I had developed a base with my own expertise, and I was an environmental policy analyst and had done written books and researched and done a lot of writing, and so I was more in that expertise mode that led me to a larger client base, as they say. So when I left Booz, the client said they wanted me, not Booz Allen, so the client followed, and that's how the business grew. So it's slightly different, and then I bootstrapped it, obviously, to where it is today. But it's a little different story, which is a good lesson to learn.
So the training is an important part, but not everybody gets it, and everybody learns on the as they practice. But at least in the DC area, what we are trying to do as a part of TAI, we are actually training students at high school now. So some of my friends are sitting in the audience as well, who are mentors to these high school students. So we actually do training to our high school students of the DC metro area during summers, in like a boot camp of MBA in 8 days, and they do compete for business plan competition and make prize monies as well as go for a global competition. So any one of you are interested, we can talk offline, either with Smita or myself, and there are a few other friends from TAI membership who can raise their hand if they, Prabha, Shiva, can you raise your hand? So there are people in the audience who can actually help you with that TYE program if you have kids in the range of 9th grader to 12th graders, right? And the reason is that we want to grow entrepreneurship in this area significantly, so that it will be good for all of us. So that next question for the panelist is like, what would be your top 3 challenges that you have faced so far in your journey, and how did you overcome them? So, or maybe 2.
You know what? She's thinking about that. So, what are the top 3? The first, at least in my case, was because I came from a very large. I had worked for United Nations, then I'd worked for Booz Allen. So I had never worked for small companies, and I just did not know what it meant to start and be sort of that lonely self and build a firm. And that, I think, was a very big challenge to a large extent, to not have the intellectual capital around you of professionals and seniors and that you can relate to. That took a while to get over, if I say that. I mean, for me to hire the other PhDs around me or senior people took a while, because you had to get that much business to hire that many people. So you then had a management team, and then you had technical experts and technical directors, which finally got there. But that's a challenge for everybody that goes through it, if you're in a very sort of specialized technical business. And I'm sure it's the same with IT and anybody who leaves a larger firm and has a client base. So that was the first challenge, the balancing act of family and business or profession is probably true of all the guys and girls the same way. Women face the same thing men do, and it doesn't matter if they're entrepreneurs or not. But I think in terms of having your own business also takes a lot more energy, especially building blocks take a while. So I think it was a lot more effort. Looking back, it would have been easier to work in a larger firm. Of course, it has paid off in a long way, but no pain, no gain. So there was a pain. So I think that second part was also difficult, if I have to say. It gets easier now. I feel very easy because I have these other 50 senior people who can do whatever they're doing, and I don't need to be in any place at one time, and I don't have to travel, and so it's much easier now. So 10 years of hard work, and it pays off, for sure. So that's the second part that one has to remember. The third piece, of course, is getting clients. So knowing, because if you're in a larger business or even with any other institution, the clients are everybody's clients, so somehow you're not the only one responsible. So it is that challenge of learning, the networking, and really getting to really market yourself. And I think I by nature just am not a marketer. I just am not. I don't even like talking about myself. So very difficult for me to go make a presentation and boast about things. It just is not my nature. I'm not a marketer. As I said, I consider myself a lot more academic than I am a business person. So it overcoming that to some extent, or not overcoming that and said, I'm not going to go do marketing. I have actually never done a single marketing, never ever, just haven't. I just refuse to. I just cannot bring myself to saying I'm going to go do a marketing presentation. So if I get business, and which I've got a pretty thriving business right now, it does with, and we are in several agencies, and right now, we have large contracts that we do, the whole Pentagon's environmental health and safety. We're doing HHS sustainability. We're in EPA's environmental policy in several offices. But I think it all happened with the work. So doing good work, I realized, pays off a lot more than just marketing is for the sake of it. But those are deeper lessons to learn. But the transition from working and to building a business is the challenge of marketing. So with that.
I 100% agree with Smita. I do believe for a small business, it's the main problem is not a problem, a challenge is the business development, which I think we all face, and getting connected to a right team and getting advice of the seniors. I completely in agreement with you in that, which I have faced in my business. And a second thing, I do feel the financial challenge for a small business is out there. We all face in some cases. And there's a social challenge, as he mentioned, coming from a South Asian background, trying to manage your home, your family, your kids, and your business, because obviously having your own business, you tend to devote more time towards your business, and keeping the balance between your family and your business. And having a Punjabi husband who expect me to come home and cook for him, that's another challenge there. So these three, I should say these three things are major for any small business or a startup business.